So without further ado, I'll hand over to Ashley to take you through today's webinar.
Good morning all, I hope you're all well and safe. Thank you Richard. Today's session will be on making tax digital and the construction industry scheme and making submissions to HMRC. So without further ado, okay. So a little bit about me to start off with, not too much because I don't want to get in the way of the good content we've got coming your way. Company overview, then we'll look at our Mtd V80 solution, our CIS solution, and then we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for question and answers, providing I don't ramble on too long. Okay. Okay, so I'm a ERP functional cloud consultant with Namos Solutions. I've worked across a variety of different projects, a variety of different sectors, and I'm a certified specialist in a couple of different areas. I've done a lot of work around the CIS and Mtd solution, which is why I've been put forward to basically deliver this webinar today. Okay, so a bit of company overview for those of you which aren't overly aware of Namos Solutions. We're specialists in implementation and support of Oracle ERP, HCM, and EPM cloud solutions. We are an Oracle only practice. We're an award-winning platinum partner and now the first partner of a new modernised program. All our staff, we don't use offshore. We're all UK-based employed staff, and we are passionate about delivering beyond expectations and looking to build those long-lasting relationships with clients. Okay, so our mission statement, well, our motto is big enough to deliver, small enough to care. So it keeps on skipping through. We pride ourselves on our professionalism, our expertise, and our trust. Okay, so we'll move on to section on Mtd V80. During this webinar, I'll be using obviously the slide deck, but I'll also be dipping in and out of our internal Oracle Cloud system. Okay, because obviously I'm not going to just show you slides. I want to show you a demonstration of our solutions. Okay, so Mtd V80. It's HMRC requirement where VAT registered businesses are required to hold digital VAT records and submit returns using making tax digital compatible software. So it's basically all around compliance. It's making sure that we've done away with a portal where you used to be able to key in into the 9 boxes. You've got to use compatible software now. And within Oracle Fusion, there's no out-of-the-box functionality for that. So we identified that as an opportunity to develop our own solution, which a number of our clients are currently using. Okay, and just towards the bottom right of the slide, you'll see 2 logos, ourselves obviously, and a company called eFileReady. So we've partnered with eFileReady, which they provide the submission through to HMRC as well as the validation. So we deal with the solution within Oracle. We've got custom reports built, which then get transferred to eFileReady and submitted through to HMRC, all automatically. I'll go through that process in a lot more detail as we go through the presentation. Okay, so high-level solution overview for making tax digital is we had a number of discussions with a number of different finance personnel, accountants, and tax managers. We often found that not all their tax data was within one system, and we'd like to have a bit of control over what is basically being submitted. Therefore, we've used we create 9 nominal accounts for statistical purposes. Each nominal value is in relation to one of the 9 boxes on the VAT return. So if you look at the image, 901 all the way through to 909, they are statistical natural account values. They can be different values depending on what your chart of accounts is. So during the demonstration, our chart of accounts, our natural accounts segment has 4, is a width of 4. So you'll see 9001 through to 9009. These accounts are just for statistical purposes. So, like I said, each account corresponds to one of the boxes of a 9-box VAT return. We create a statistical journal. Each line of a journal will correspond to one of the boxes of a 9-box VAT return, which I'll show you that shortly. And once the journal has been created, possibly approved if you've got journal approvals in place, and posted, the data will be stored and it'll be ready to be picked up automatically by our custom reports and submitted through to HMRC. So there's no manual processing of running that report. We schedule it to run on a particular day specified by the client. It's a flexible approach. It's whatever meets the client's requirements. For example, some clients, it might take them just a few days to prepare the VAT return. Not highly unlikely. It depends how good their tax setup has been and how advanced that is. But some might find they want to schedule it for perhaps 10 days into the following month after quarter 1 has ended, for example. We're relatively flexible in that. Okay, so the process. Okay, so the client would generate the out-of-the-box tax reports that are available in Fusion, and any reports which will be used to facilitate the completion of a statistical journal. Okay, the client creates and posts a statistical journal. We then set up a call, or we have a face-to-face meeting. Obviously, in the current climate, it's more likely to be a virtual call, where we create a account with eFileReady. eFileReady have both a test server and a live server, so we're able to complete testing of the solution before going into the live solution, which is obviously sending stuff through to HMRC's live front end. Okay, so that doesn't take too long at all. It's very straightforward. We're just keying in the client's information, and then we complete the SFTP setup to make sure that Oracle is linked with eFileReady. Your Oracle system is linked with eFileReady. Okay, the statistical balances, which are posted via the statistical journals, picked up by the custom report. And obviously, like I mentioned, it's run on a date the client chooses, and it's run automatically. Okay, so the report is then sent to eFileReady via SFTP for validation and for submission onwards to HMRC. So you'll then receive acknowledgement that's fed back to you, the client, on whether the submission has been successful or if any issues have arisen. But we see any issues arise. We always make sure that with Mtd it's relatively straightforward in terms of the report and in terms of the submission. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll just go into the application. For 1 second. Okay, so I'm now on our internal Dev1 system. Okay, and in general accounting journals, you would click on the task menu and you would click create journal. What I did earlier is I created a statistical journal rather than going through and creating it during this session, just because obviously I've got a lot to cover during this session. Okay, so there's a journal I've created, Mtd V80 Q1. Okay, so within here, I've obviously named the journal batch. I've given the journal batch a name, I've given the journal a name. But what I want to point out here is I've created a category called statistical, and the currency type is statistical. Okay. You'll then see I've got 9 journal lines. Each one, so if I just click on this option here, so a cost center, the cost center is the same for all lines. It is Making Tax Digital Statistical. Okay. The reason I've set up a cost center is not that it has any relevance at all to the report which is being submitted. It is just so we can set up cross-validation rules to ensure that no one posts these statistical values unless they're using the cost center 900. And you can see it says digital statistical. So the user will know they must select one of the accounts which is relating to Making Tax Digital, which is the range between 9001 and 9009. So 9008 is for net EC suppliers. It's box 8 on the Mtd V80 return. Okay, so what I've done, I've got the 9 lines of a 9-box VAT return. I've entered the amounts into each box. I click save, and now I'll just click post. Okay, so your process has been submitted. So that's just it's the same process as posting a normal journal. The only difference is it's obviously a statistical currency. You've got here stat. With statistical journals, you've not got to worry about debits and credits balancing. So as you'll see there, I entered it all as debits. Okay, so that's the journal done. What I'll just do now is I'll go to home. I'll just check to make sure that process of posting the journal is finished. So I'm just going to quickly, actually I'll go to reports and analytics. So what I'm going to do now is, for this webinar, I'm going to be showing you the process within Oracle, and then I'll be talking you through the latter stage of the process where it gets obviously submitted through to eFileReady and onwards to HMRC. So I'll just show you the reports which we've built. So I go to reports and analytics. I go to browse catalog. So in shared folders, custom, I've got financials here. I've got MTD. I've got MTD report e-text manual. So the client's report will be the automatic one, which you will schedule to run at a frequency which the client defines. But what I want to do, I just want to generate a manual one just to show you what's being pulled through. Okay, so this is obviously a custom report, and each you got obviously all the boxes there. But what I'll do is I'll just click on. So quarter 1 would be April to June. You'd be submitting it in July. So I'll just click any day in July. You've got the financial year and you've got the quarter. I'll click apply, and you can see all the amounts that I've entered from that journal are being pulled through. Okay, but you obviously wouldn't be doing the process I'm doing now. I'm just showing you what's going on in the back end. So automatically this report is run. It's submitted through to eFileReady, it's validated and submitted through to HMRC. And that is your Making Tax Digital VAT return complete. Okay. Okay, so back to the slide deck now. This is just showing you the one-off account creation with eFileReady. So we just enter all the SFTP details, secure file transfer protocol, just to make sure, well, to ensure that the file from Oracle is sent through to the SFTP location. eFileReady then pick that up. They've got a schedule running automatically, pull that through, validate it, and submit it to HMRC. Okay, this is a screenshot of what I've just showed you in the system, our custom Mtd V80 report again. This is not something which is available out of the box. Okay, so we'll just go into CIS now. The CIS part of this session will, of course, take slightly longer than the Making Tax Digital. So what is the construction industry scheme? For those of you that are not aware, this is just a paragraph taken from HMRC website. Under the construction industry scheme, contractors deduct money from the subcontractor's payment and pass it to HMRC. So the deductions basically count as a payment towards the subcontractor's tax and national insurance. Within that, you have 3 different CIS rates. You have 0%, 20%, and 30%. Some of the larger subcontractors contractors deal with are often 0%. They have an agreement with HMRC. And contractors, they have to register for the scheme. Subcontractors don't have to register for the scheme, but if they don't register, the deductions taken from their payments are at a higher rate of 30%. So it's in their best interest to register, really. Okay, again, we've got 2 logos. We've partnered with eFileReady, who are e-filing specialists and provide obviously a submission software, validation software for a number of different returns, and obviously we're using them for Mtd V80 and CIS. Okay, so I'll just go through the solution. There's quite a few bullet points in here just because there's quite a lot of setup required for CIS, but once you set it up, the automation of it really is beneficial. So our solution is that we create DFFs against the supplier record. So DFFs, they are descriptive flex fields. Okay, these descriptive flex fields coincide with the information which is required on your submissions. So for example, I'll show you those shortly against a supplier record when we go into the application. Okay, so our custom report pulls that information and includes it on the submission to HMRC. We then assign a CIS tax rate, so a withholding tax rate against the supplier site level. So we either assign 0%, 20%, or 30%, depending on their verification status. Withholding tax rules are created to ensure that the whole invoice is not subject to withholding tax. So if you were to assign the CIS tax rate against the supplier, then the whole invoice for that supplier would have withholding tax applied to it, which isn't necessarily correct, especially when you have, for example, 2 invoice lines. One's for materials, which is withholding tax shouldn't be applied to, and one for labour. So we've had to create some tax rules in the background. The tax rules I've created, I'll talk about in more detail when we go into the application, but it's based on what natural account is entered as to whether CIS should be applicable or non-applicable. Okay. Our custom report, it then pulls all the information from the flex fields and withholding tax rates created when invoices are raised. The report we created, it's aligned with HMRC guidelines, it's fully compliant, and eFileReady, they're our integration partner who validate this report before it's sent to HMRC. So they basically validate it against HMRC schema. They'll inform us of any errors should there be any issues with the data. If there's any issues with the data, you correct it in the source system. So for example, you might need to correct some information at your supplier level or even at your invoice level. The report, if it's validated successfully, it's then automatically e-filed through to HMRC, and eFileReady will receive confirmation, which will then be emailed to the SFTP inbox and onto the client. So our solution, it's not just a solution for making the returns, the CIS 300 returns, you're also able to complete CIS verifications. Okay, so the high level process is that you collate the data in the system, and then the data is captured, it's loaded to the FTP site, through to the government portal and back into Oracle. You'll see automated via scheduled ESS jobs. So boxes 2 to 5, that's all automated for you. The only manual part of the process is when you would be creating the invoice. Okay, so I'll go through each section in more detail as we progress through the session. Okay, so the supplier record. So what I'll do now, this is just a screenshot, but it'll be much more. It'll be much better if I just went into the application to show you. Okay, so I'm back in our Oracle Cloud Dev1 system. I'll go to procurement and suppliers. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set ourselves up as a supplier, which I have done. Okay, so you see here, Namos Solutions Limited. I've set ourselves up as a supplier type contractor. Okay, so when there's a supplier type contractor, this will be pulled through onto the report, and then you'll have a subcontractors associated to the contractor via parent supplier. So there's no parent supplier here, but I've created a further 3 CIS subcontractors as suppliers on this system, and their parent supplier is Namos Solutions Limited, supplier type contractor, whereas the other suppliers are supplier type subcontractor. Here is the descriptive flex fields in the additional information section in the supplier record. You've got the accounts office reference number, your CIS validated, you've got your unique tax reference, your UTR, subcontractor verification number, your PAYE reference, and a field for company registration number. So all this information is pulled through onto the submission, okay? So that is the contractor record. I'll now show you the subcontractor records, AT Groundworks. Okay, so supplier type, subcontractor, parent supplier. So the parent supplier is Namos Solutions Limited. So say you had more than one contractor on your system, or you were submitting on behalf of numerous contractors. You might have, I don't know, 7 legal entities. You could obviously set all these up and associate the supplier to different parent suppliers. So when you generate the reports, you pick the contractor in which you want to submit for. Well, you won't pick, we'd automate it all. So we'd schedule it for each contractor to run. Okay, again, you've got the same descriptive flex fields, and then you've got all the information again. But the thing here, if you click on sites, so obviously in Oracle Cloud, everything within payables and procurement and receivables is done at the site level. If I just click edit, in site assignments, I've enabled withholding tax. I've assigned a withholding tax group of 20% CIS. Okay, you'll see available is 0% CIS and 30% CIS. So this subcontractor, AT Groundworks, is 20% CIS rate should be applied. Okay, so that is the supplier record. So obviously, as part of our implementation, we would set up the descriptive flex fields, and we would obviously look at suppliers and updating the information. So just bear with me for 1 second as I go back to the slide deck. Okay, so that's the supplier record for the contractor. That's the supplier record for the subcontractor, which I've just been through. And the supplier site, as I pointed out, with enable withholding tax and apply 20% CIS. Okay, so invoice creation. The withholding tax is determined based on the withholding tax group assigned at the supplier site level and any tax rules which have been set up. So if I just point out, this is a screenshot of an invoice I created earlier, but I'll go in and create a new one. Supplier AT Groundworks, invoice number, your amount. I've got 2 lines on the invoice, okay? The one line, let's imagine 7010 is CIS labour. So that is the line in which withholding tax should be applied. The second line, 7020, is for materials. Therefore, no withholding tax should be applied to that line. Okay, So what we've done, we've created a tax rule where if you use natural account 7020, CIS should be not applicable. And we've got a number of different rules in place. And this is obviously a solution which we could fit to the client's requirements. They might have different accounts which they use. They might need to create an additional account for materials. It's a very flexible approach. There's so many different factors which we can use when setting up tax rules. It all depends on what level of complexity or simplicity suits your requirements. So let me just go back into the application. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go to the invoices work area. So payables, invoices. Okay. So that's the one I created earlier, CIS 80. So I've not posted it to the ledger yet. Or validated it. Okay, so when I'm creating an invoice, I type in the business unit, I type in the supplier, that will default the rest of the information in. I type in the invoice number, type in the amount. The rest of this information on the right is all defaulted in based on the setup. I then create an invoice line for a 100 British pounds. I then enter the distribution combination. I do the same for the secondary line. Okay, so I've clicked Invoice Actions Calculate Tax. You'll notice the invoice amount is 200. The total here is 200, but the amount due to the supplier is 180. Okay. So if I click on Expand Taxes. Okay, so transaction tax, just the way the supplier has been set up, there's no tax applied, but you know, it could be 20% tax, it could be reduced, your standard, out of scope, all depending on your tax setup. Just for this example, it's no transaction tax being applied. Withholding taxes, so if I click on this now, you'll see 20% CIS has been applied. Okay, so the amount is minus 20. It's not minus 40. It's not calculated withholding tax on the second line because that line is for materials. You see there the account description, materials. Okay, so what I'll do now, I'll just click Invoice Actions and validate the invoice. Okay, so that's validated. We'll post it. Okay, so we'll view accounting, just to show you what the accounting looks like. Okay, so your item expense lines, you've got your liability and you've got your withholding tax. Okay. So when you validate the invoice, which has withholding tax, our withholding tax invoices, an invoice is automatically created for the tax collecting authority, which is HMRC. So let me just go back into slide deck. Okay, so that is the data entry phase of the CIS solution. You've just got to obviously enter the correct information against the supplier record. When you then create the invoice, information from a supplier record is being used to determine the withholding tax, as is the use of the tax rules which have been set up in the background. So it's all automatically calculated for you at that point. Okay. So the next is the CIS data capture, so which is associated to the custom reports which we have built. So again, this is not something which is out of the box functionality. Okay, identify this as an opportunity to build a solution around it. We've had a number of different clients inquire and have a requirement for such a solution in cloud. And obviously, for your on-premise clients, moving to cloud, you're going to make sure you're still able to complete such legislative regulatory requirements. So you have a custom report which we built. Okay, so there's information here which is pulling the contractor details from the contractor supplier and from the subcontractor record, as well as any invoices which have been created that meet the criteria within the tax month. So the report's automatically scheduled to run. You've not got to manually submit this report. We schedule it to run before the deadline, obviously, because with CIS, if you miss the deadline, there's escalating fines. Okay, so it goes up every day you're late. So we schedule that to run a couple of days before the deadline, or whatever the client would prefer. They may wish to have more time. So in case of any issues, particularly around the first run, they might want for peace of mind to schedule that to run, I don't know, 5 or 6 working days before the deadline, just to, if there was any issues, they'd be able to address it. Okay, so the reports automatically run. It pulls all transactions which meet the criteria in a tax month, and it's submitted through via SFTP to eFileReady. eFileReady validate the file before it goes to HMRC, and then gets submitted through to HMRC. Any errors, the client will be notified, and it'll give an error message as to what the issue is. So I'm trying to think of an example, and not one springs out to mind, but any issues, it will let you know. It will identify the subcontractor, which is the error exists on. You would then address the issue in the system, and then we have the ability to run the report on an ad hoc basis, or just reschedule it to run within the next 5-10 minutes, perhaps. Okay, so the FTP stage of the project, SFTP. Okay, so we do the one-off account creation again. You've seen this slide earlier with Mtd V80. So with eFileReady, we just need to set up one account, okay, in most instances, and you're able to do CIS and Mtd. You don't need separate accounts for both, so that's quite handy. And obviously it uses the same SFTP details. Okay, so the high-level process, the government portal. Okay, so government portal, once eFileReady received the file via SFTP, it's validated in line with HMRC schema. Like I said, any errors will be flagged, and then the way to resolve those errors is to address the issues within your source systems within Oracle Cloud. And then the process is rerun, and the file's submitted again to eFileReady and onto HMRC. Once it's validated, eFileReady submit the file to HMRC, and then you obviously get your e-filing certificate back from HMRC. Okay, so back to Oracle acknowledgements. You receive receipts for submissions made to HMRC. You receive verification responses with verification numbers, which you would then update your supplier records with a verification number, because that was a DFF, a descriptive flex field, which we've created against the supplier record. Okay, so I know it says final Q&A, but I just want to go back into the system quickly just to show you some of the tax rules. Okay, so I'm just going to go to Manage Invoices. I'm just going to click on invoice date. Just bear with me. Okay, so that's the invoice I created earlier. I just want to show you. Okay, so in setup maintenance, as part of the implementation, we set up tax rules. So I've set up a tax rule where if the account 7020 materials or 7030 CIS services which are not applicable for CIS is used, then withholding tax is not applicable. Whereas when they're not used, when those values are not used, CIS tax is applicable. Okay, so this is the non-applicable rule. Okay, so what's the result? Non-applicable. So when when either of these two accounts specified, 7020, 7030 are used, CIS withholding tax will not be applied. Okay, we've then got another rule where we've got the different tax rates, CIS 0, CIS 20, and CIS 30. Result is applicable. So it says accounting, line account. If the line account does not equal, it says here, 7020, 7030, then withholding tax is applicable. So that's just some of the setup behind how we automate the tax. Okay, I'll just go back into the invoice area. And what I'll do is I'll create an invoice from scratch with one of the other suppliers I've created. One which has 30% CIS. Okay, so the invoice number CIS-NT, the invoice amount 200, so that's my header information complete. I'll now enter my invoice line. I'm entering my natural account. I'll just select that one for now. Okay, and now I'll enter a second line, which is going to be for materials. Okay, so materials. I'm going to click invoice actions and calculate tax. Okay, it should be 0 or 30. Yeah, 30. That's one. It's 30 for the supplier. Okay, so CIS 30 was assigned at the supplier site level. And again, it's only treating the first line as withholding tax. So it's all automatically done for you. You process that invoice as you would any other invoice. And on the back of it, it creates a withholding tax invoice for HMRC. Okay, so we'll just go back into slide deck. Now we're a bit ahead of schedule, so we've got plenty of time for any questions you may wish to ask. So, yeah, feel free to fire away.